Morning, Ed.
Morning. How are you?
Shit ass. Oh, I feel like I've been broken in two. I feel like they never looked at my midriff, and it feels like my stomach's broken in two bits. What else? I have these mad hallucinogenic dreams about America. I don't know who's causing that. Apparently yesterday you had a big expo on the new things that are coming in science to keep Americans happy, and it was like being on LSD, man. It was weird. So all I can see is America's fucked. And I had another hallucinogenic one last night. Just really weird stuff. I think the only one I'd want to be with now is VJ because he looks so cool. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting times. Interesting times. I think I'm hurt a lot more than I thought I was. So yeah.
What do you mean?
Mackerel. Oh well, just these hallucinogenic dreams for one thing. Not being able to sleep properly is another. Having these strange experiences of absolute unreality. You know, I don't even know what's going on. They're so strange. Yeah, that's basically it. Hello, Jay. He's back. Hey, how was Iceland? Was it Iceland you went to? Where'd you go, Jay? We've got some new faces.
Let me try it after I open the mic. I was in Europe for 16 days.
Where?
I was all over the British Isles.
Oh,
UK, London, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, looking up my dual citizenship potential.
Wow. Did you get drunk?
No, but I went to several distilleries. I grew up in the drinking capital of the Northeast United States, so I'm inured to alcohol as I know it.
That's a great achievement.
But I do it in moderation.
Yeah. So we brought up some new blood for you as well. So you can talk to these guys and tell them how hopeless they are. You've got, who's that? That's Eric.
Ian,
Hey, Eric.
Ian.
Shut up.
You better take
I was just told to shut up.
He's a bit different than he used to be. The brain bleed made him a little bit more different. He's definitely changed, but he's still him.
He's different but the same.
Yeah, different but the same. He's still him, but he's just his personality's changed.
Oh, bullshit.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
It's gotten worse.
No, well, it's just he's more direct. He used to be more roundabout. He's very direct now.
Yeah, that's dangerous. That's seriously dangerous.
He's a lot more impatient with people, like the hospital stuff. We actually just we checked him out on our own. We just thought, no, we're not going to.
Oh, I kept
getting stay in this place.
Kept getting these big stories that they were feeding me poison, and they had a plan to keep me in as long as possible so they'd make more money. And then I realised I was in Australia, not America. And then, oh man, the dreams were just freaky. You know, they were all. It was a weekend, and that's when they party. So they're all just having a party and getting drunk, and that was what was happening.
That was partially true, though.
Yeah, it was. Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, quite a place.
Okay, I'll put you on mute now. That's his go.
Edgy, it's now time for Satsang.
Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Morning. Welcome. In sunny Arizona, it's probably 103 by now. We're going up to maybe 112 today. We had the hottest month ever for any city in the United States last month. I hate heat. I like cool air. Not Cleveland cold, but cool air. How are you all? The fastest way, perhaps the only way, to make spiritual progress is regularity and gaining the ability to introverse, turn your attention around and look inside. Look inside your body, then feel inside your body and see how and if they're congruent. You have to learn to relax the mind so it's not so loud when it shouts at you. And you learn how to ignore it and pay it no heed and just sit in the silence, feeling your body. Then you can ask questions like, what the hell are you? Who the hell are you? What am I really? And the strange thing is, when you answer yourself with ideas, you're going to be nowhere near really experiencing yourself. You'll be describing the mind and how it operates, and you can put yourself into that realm of being in the mind and operating. But you have to learn how to escape the mind and see the mind as another center of experience for you, but no longer as the entirety of who and what you are. That's why I say just learn how to fucking relax. Just let go. When you let go of your mind, which allows you to do some real looking at yourself without the ideas in your mind about who and what you really are in that interval of time. In other words, try to escape the urge to know and transfer to a primary sense of learning how to be and knowing yourself in beingness. Your beingness is exemplified by the sense of beingness you can feel when you turn your attention around into the body. And when you got to realize when you turn your attention around and look into the body, you're still in your mind. So what you have to do is move your consciousness, your awareness, the center of your awareness, from here down to your gut, or at least to your heart. And when you do that, you'll feel a huge expansion in what you feel to be your inner space. It's no longer confined by thoughts or being in your head, and your attention actually drops into the body, and you can allow it to just stay there. Feel your heart, feel your gut, feel the tension in your body, in your back, your neck, wherever you find it. Be aware of it, and every few minutes try to relax it so it's no longer there. Ideally, we could reach a stage of relative emptiness where you can feel your body and observe the mind, but actually observe your body from the inside. What does your body look like from a first-person point of view, as opposed to what you're reading that tells you about what you're feeling? Or when you're awake and thinking, to think about who and what you are. That's not going to help unless you can drop your attention, the center of your attention, out of your head into your body. You feel it as an experience, that you're dropping out of your brain into your body. And when you do that, you are, expands and becomes very spacious, because you no longer feel yourself confined to the inside of your head. And this is the basic perception that many kinds of spirituality want you to get in touch with. Instead of the world of the mind and the worlds of understanding that it creates. I want you to become dumb as a rock. In other words, this is to become functionless and stopping. And when you can really stop it and rest what your experiences of yourself with the stopped mind, you've made a real beginning to transition from a world of people and bodies to the place of an infinite space, which you are when the mind stops. Consciousness drops out of the mind and into your experience of you and the world around you. When you can do that, you're observing reality from a different viewpoint than you normally do, which is a head mounted on a 5-foot tall body. You can feel your body. But the main thing is to get out of that feeling of understanding something, which is being sutured closely to your mind. You want to get so the mind can be observed as different from you. It's really hard to get a lot of people to do this. Because the reality you experience when the mind stops feels altogether too small for the experience of witnessing your inner life and your experience of the world from the inside after you've dropped down into your chest and your gut. You're free of the mind. You can watch the mind talk all the time now, and you don't feel at all moved by it. You don't feel an attraction to follow the thoughts or to think about what is being said or heard. And instead, you just stop. You stop and you observe who and what you are right now. And the thing is, what you find is not very thrilling. It's you without a mind. There's nothing to know here. You're experiencing yourself without a mind. Without a mind, you have no quality. Qualities are determined by the mind. So it's hard to get used to a point of view where you can't describe what's going on and think of it as something real or permanent or as you. The idea or the concept of you being this or that doesn't exist when you're not in the mind. But what you feel is a kind of peace as you're away from this who's constantly after you to figure things out and to understand things. You go from being a doer to being a nothinger. And being nothing really doesn't cut it for the mind. The mind wants to grab on concepts. You want to be able to describe the mind and what you are in very pretty, poetic speech. But there's nothing pretty and poetic about you. There's just a sense of resting and relaxing. Because focusing on the mind is always tension. From this relaxed point of view, the world doesn't exist. The existing world is more or less one made up of thought over the years. But when you experience it firsthand, there's really nothing you can talk about. And if you start talking about it, you're right back in the limited world of your mind. So the key is to be able to grasp that there's a mind in you and feel it, watch it, listen to it, but ignore it. It becomes your object of meditation, watching the mind and watching it from a position of total rest on your part, which means you've dropped your consciousness and embrace your whole body as you, rather than just thinking about it. When you drop your mind, you're moving from understanding and thinking to being. But if you use your mind to explore being, you're not leaving the thought structure behind. You're still immersed partially in it. you still want to look for conclusions and understanding and words and something you can deal with and talk about as an object. Either the object of yourself as a body, or the object of the self as one who's no longer identified with the body, has lost the sense of mind, so it's in the background now. What you're doing is experiencing yourself and the world mindlessly, and there's not really much you can say about it, because as soon as you're talking about it, you re-enter the world of thinking in the mind, and you haven't gained anything. You're still caught by the mind. Now, I found over the years that the mind is capable of constantly gaining control of you, even when you think you've gone beyond it. Thing is, moving from that position of meditation, where you're dwelling in your body and in your sense of beingness, nothing you express is of the mind. So you can't tie a ribbon around it and say, I understand this. You can only be this. So you go from knowing to being. And even later you explore the transition from nothingness into beingness. When the consciousness goes away in the evening, or does sometimes for most people, when we arise and become conscious in the morning, is something to be aware of. Strange thing is, if you're aware of it, it becomes an object. And the worlds tend to confuse each other between mindless being and mindful being. So after you've separated from the body's identification, still, whenever you use the mind, you're going to be back in the world of concepts that we've learned all of our life, and which describes our experience. As I look at all of you that I can see, the one closest to the description I've been talking about right now is the visual image presented by Vijay. A great emptiness with great silence. No objects there. Nothing of interest to engage the mind. You're just sitting there in silence. It gives you a rest from beingness by being totally submerged in beingness. And when you are, the mind doesn't operate there. It just observes. And when you talk about this experience, you'll be talking about it from memory and thinking and concluding about your primary states. But if you're in that primary states and you start describing it, you're back in the mind. It's really hard to escape the mind. Because the mind loves to play. It wants you to play with it. So the mind wants you to give it something to work on, and you're refusing it. So the mind keeps pestering you after you've escaped it, wanting to re-involve you in thinking. So we can begin to see there are at least two universes of discourse. Ones we have now as localized human beings with the history and a history of the world around us. And the next point of view is of beingness without mind. It's hard to describe beingness without mind because as soon as you describe it, you're talking about phenomena. Or to call what happens to you as immersion in emptiness really doesn't help you much either. It's still a concept. What I'm trying to do is make you aware of existence without thinking. Try to get there enough so that you learn how to relax like a being would who's not constantly in their mind. So, when you catch yourself thinking, stop it. Just be aware. Aware of what reality is for you at that moment. There's a big difference between the world we live in when we haven't practiced spirituality and everything we experience is considered as real with all of its concepts and interpretations. It's a world of mind with language and concepts, communication. Mind has no idea who and what the fuck you are. You can only know that by realizing you're separate from the mind. The mind is not you, it's a tool to be used by you if you want to. But what are you when you don't have the mind? And the way I can characterize it most is a feeling of openness, maybe of space, where nothing is happening. You're aware of awareness itself. You're aware of the mind and how it really doesn't touch who you really are, which is your sense of existence. Your sense of existence is centered in your gut, your heart, not in the head. So a lot of times you'll feel as if you're moving from the mind and the head into a vast space of emptiness and the experiences of your own body. And those experiences can't be labeled without destroying them as pristine experiences. Once you describe this inner world in terms of ideas, you've ruined it. You're trying to reclassify your new thoughtless reality as a thought, an understanding of what you are without the mind. You have to learn to just do it, become mindless, and not be worried by all of the constant insistence by your mind to understand what mindlessness is like. The mind wants to play with you. Matter of fact, for most of your lives, you probably think the mind is being the primary character in your dream that you were living through. But it's not. Your existence and the prime experience of your existence in a mind that has no thoughts, or with a mind that has no thoughts, is really simple. It's not a state of enlightenment. It's a state of freedom where you feel sometimes very small and unknowing and ignorant, realizing that all you're knowing is just puffing you up with ideas of yourself rather than an experience of yourself. Now, your experience of yourself is entirely different from what you think about yourself. Thinking can't touch this basic state. You can only be in that basic state and become aware of it and separate it from your thinking state. And eventually, you'll be able to longer and longer sit in mindlessness without feeling too knackered, I guess would be the best word for it. You can be sitting in mindlessness, experiencing your body and your mind from the first person point of view, but prior to any understanding about what you're experiencing. So you feel empty, like a rag doll that has no inner sustenance to support it. You're kind of lost. But in that lostness, you begin to feel a deep sense of freedom after a while. Freedom from the mind. That's why Zen seems to be so empty. It's about little people that go around living their life, not obsessed by thinking about what their life is about, or what space is about, or what science is about, or what the levels of existence are, or anything like that, because that's the mind. And if you're dwelling in this area of understanding, you haven't become mindless yet. You have that to look forward to. And when it happens, it's not that special. It's an emptying of all the specialness out of your life that mind creates. You become ordinary. Even more ordinary than Ian, if that's at all possible. Or more ordinary than Vesselina, or Adam, or me. Now, there are a lot of people that have intensely active minds that really don't like experiencing nothingness because there's nothing to talk about. Because once you start talking about it, it's moved from real nothingness into talking about nothingness, and you're still in your brain. You haven't escaped the brain yet. You haven't escaped concepts yet. You're still searching for concepts to talk about or to communicate. What you are cannot be communicated by you. If it's communicated, it's a concept. And they won't understand it, what you're saying, unless they've had the same experiences themselves of nothingness, of emptiness, and of a mind grown simple that doesn't grasp and hold on to every experience and try to build it into patterns. Now, this person is truly a bum. He or she doesn't want to create anything or to know anything because they know that knowing removes you from who you really are into the realm of mind. The mind has a picture of everything and how it fits together. So, involving the mind means that you become racked by inner demons of whatever thought and content in your thought is arising at the moment. Knowing the truly empty state, after a while, after you've known it long enough, you can instill it in yourself almost automatically. It's not hard to do. And the thing is, you don't feel like you gain much by doing it. Because most of the time, you're not glued to your mind anymore. You're glued to your experience of your own beingness. And if you try to explore that beingness and try to understand that beingness, you're back in the world of the mind. There is a world there that's more real than all the thinking of the minds over the hundreds of thousands of years of human existence. Normal human existence really is about building maps of the external world, basically, and of yourself secondarily. But the mind needs to be able to understand. It's always looking for understanding. When you get caught in that trap of trying to understand, you're right there with millions and millions and billions of other people who haven't escaped their mind. But you may ask, what's the value of escaping the mind? I say the only value is freedom. Freedom from your fucking mind. The mind is a trap. You have to become simpler than your mind. Your mind is clever and complicated and can create images and levels of existence and worlds of forces. But when you don't have that, the world is very, very simple. It's just that which you can feel inside, with both within and without you. But at the same time, even though it narrows, because you're not trying to grasp the whole world anymore, but only your own beingness. Being in your own beingness feels spacious and like freedom. Freedom from the mind is what you find. That's why it feels so good. You're free of your oppressor, the mind. That's always trying to get you to understand something or to figure something out, or to listen to a symphony, so you can become tangled in thoughts about the structure of the tune you just heard. The mind is relentless in getting you involved in understanding. But when you become dumb as a rock, you really have nothing to offer the mind anymore. So you'll be in two worlds. The normal world of human beings, which doesn't look deeply at itself and is totally immersed in a world of action and activities around you, along with all the judgments and understanding you have of yourself and your mind and the world around you. But when you leave that, you don't have that cleverness anymore. You're simple-minded. You don't need any words to describe your experiences. And if you put them into words, you're not conveying that experience at all. Leave the mind alone. It's not your friend. It's the one that keeps disturbing you and waking you up and having you think about certain things that you think should be important, like the amount of life insurance you have, or insurance on the house, or how to meet the mortgage payments. World of activity, of being. So why is Vesselina smiling and looking about? Have her cats created a circus for her to follow? Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody really understand what I'm talking about? Getting rid of the mind and learning how to be? I know Mark does. But it's not easy to escape the mind until you've tried it for a long period of time and you've learned what it's like to exist without your mind. Existing without the mind is kind of refreshing. You're not constantly tempted to think about what you are and all the internal connections that makes with other things that you know about. You become dumb as a rock. And although that sounds funny, it's a good concept to put before yourself. Allow yourself to be dumb as a rock, with no understanding at all. Just being in your own experience and immersed in your own body's experience of the world around it, the feelings it has of being alive, the energies you find within you, and the temptations that the mind makes to follow its directions and going into worlds of understanding, which is not of being. That's the fundamental distinction. You have to learn to be, not to understand. So if you read a book, that's all about understanding. So you can be a brilliant scholar and a friend to Buddha, where Buddha talks about you relentlessly, about somebody in his office, or not office, but his life, that is characterized in a certain way. And he speaks of other people that don't have that burden. He's trying to take you to that point of having no burden, just expansiveness. I've heard, it's a rumor. I wasn't there, so I don't know. But Robert's last words coming when he was dying in his bed were freedom, freedom, freedom. So as he was leaving his mind and his body, he found that as complete freedom. So, while we may think it's great to know so many things about the world or the universe or ourselves, that we can become doctors or physicists or whatever, spiritual man wants none of this and wants to just live out of his own beingness in the moment without understanding the world or levels of existence or anything like that. And when you do this, you're in a very different world. You're no longer in the world of concepts or the mind. You're no longer wrapped up into yourself and your body. Your being feels so relaxed and open. Now, you can, and I have, asked yourself, well, what's so special about this mindless experience? And I guess the only answer is a sense of freedom. Freedom from the human condition. Freedom from your everyday life of concern. Freedom from your mind. You realize that the world you had dwelled in was one of congealed concepts about who and what he is or she is. And very little living in the real immediacy of existing. You've got a veneer of thinking around everything in your life. Which means you lead a secondary life, a removed life, one of concepts about beingness. And beingness itself becomes a concept to you. So that everything becomes confusing. We don't know what aspect or level you're coming from. And what a lot of spiritual teachers are, the good ones, are trying to take you to a state where there's no one there as a concept. Just the immediacy of your own experience, sitting here at satsang or sitting up at night, just in your own beingness, meditating. And the value is that sense of freedom you feel when the center of your existence drops out of your mind. Is felt as freedom. So some deeply spiritual people become, from an external point of view, dunces. Or people that act totally incomprehensibly. The comprehensible is what you have to leave behind. Get aware of that sense of freedom that happens when you lose your mind, when you escape your mind and you no longer identify with the imaging that's going on inside the mind. Because thoughts create images of what is. And there is the rub. That's where you get off base from who and what you really are. And start dwelling in a land of images by examining and experiencing and hearing from your mind what the mind thinks is. So your life really begins to slow down, because the more awakened you are, the less things you have to do, except by the exigencies of whatever presents itself to you in your new role as being a mindless idiot. It takes time before your idiocy is recognized as something high and rarefied, as opposed to being the natural state of a person who is full of shit. So, it's a matter of escaping identification with the mind, and in fact have no identification itself. Identification is the real glue that holds you to the world of the mind. You feel comfortable fucking around in the worlds of the mind. So instead, feel uncomfortable in the freedom of having no mind. And after a while, it becomes a very treasured place for you to relax. Not think about problems or entities or things to do or things not to do. You run away from opportunities to embed yourself in missions, things to be done, instead of just relaxing, being a buffoon. Of course, you're not really a buffoon, you're just mindless. Okay. If you don't understand, please question. Ask a question. Spirituality is just about stopping your mind instead of creating extremely beautiful sentences and poetry about the nature of life, of God, and such things like that. Yes, that's it. There's nothing there except your mind puts there. Instead, shut up. Ignore your mind. And feel yourself. Feel yourself in the body, your body without thinking. And try to understand what it is not to think. To just be instead of understanding. And you don't try to take your understanding mind into the state of being and trying to describe it in words to communicate to somebody else. Once you discover mindlessness, it's yours to keep forever. But boy, is it having a hard time communicating this to others. They ask, what's the value of this state? What can you do with it? There's nothing you can do with it. Because doing with it puts you in the state of calculating and thinking. Calculating what's best for you, what's best for the world, and then doing it with the sense of being immersed in a purpose. When you're mindless, you don't have a sense of purposelessness. You have the sense that purpose is a kind of poison. It poisons you with understanding and all the values that we have about life and aging and wisdom and truth. There is no truth in this world. There's only beingness in you. It's only you. You're the center of the entire universe that you experience every day. Yeah, there may be one independent of you, but all that you ever know really is you, except for thinking and thoughts and all the worlds that minds create. But what if you didn't have all these worlds of mental concepts that teach you about the fundamentals of your own existence? And instead, just escape the mind and get into that more primitive level of yourself where the mind doesn't function and you just are. That which just is very calm, very centered. It's not worried about what you should do or shouldn't do, or what will be or what was. And you have a new sense of freedom. Freedom from your enslaver, the mind. You think the mind is hot shit now, but it's not. It's not. You believe what you think is real, but it's not. You think that what you say is true, but truth doesn't exist. That's why Zen masters, when confronted by a student that doesn't understand doing nothing and asks all kinds of questions, the teacher will slap him or hit him with the stick or say "cuts" to cut the thinking and doing. You may think that the teacher's trying to drive you into insanity, but you're not getting the point of what he's doing when he slaps you in the face and hits you over the head with the stick to stop thinking. And instead feel what the stick is telling you by the knot on your head. It's telling you to shut the fuck up and stop thinking. Now you can say, well, what's the value of that? Well, it has no value from the point of view of the mind, but from one who was able to rest in this state of thoughtlessness. It means freedom and relief from that heavy burden of life of always being prepared to do something to make things right. And instead, you have no concept inside of yourself that determines that the world should be other than it is. So there's nothing to do except to be and to explore your own beingness and to move from thinking into your beingness world and make that your home instead of your thinking world, your thinking mind. Now, this is probably a hard concept for any physicist to understand, since physicists tend to be totally in their mind, just like philosophers are totally in their mind. They believe the world is real, and they even may mention that the world is real or not real or something like that, but it's understanding, and understanding misses the point of being. When you're in understanding, you're not in the truth of your own beingness, even though in beingness there is no truth. There's just what is. There is what is without labeling anything you see as what is. Now, how many people here think you got what I just said for the last 40 minutes? Was that you, Cassie? Did you raise your hand? Good. You raised a finger, Tom. Does that mean you're not totally in there, but one finger in there?
Hi, Edgy. I'd like to take issue with one point that you made. I mean, everything you said was great, but I just want
to argue.
No, I don't want to argue. I just want to condemn and criticize and
okay.
tear apart that which is sacred. No, I'm just joking. So you said, like, what is the benefit of being mindless, of being in beingness? Well, there is tremendous benefit, because being in the mind consumes...
That's a concept.
Well, okay, I can't speak without concepts, but I'll point as closely as I can, because being identified with what mind is saying consumes a lot of energy. And when one is no longer identified with the mind's narrative, when one is in beingness and mindlessness, it frees up all this energy to go into beingness. And one's vividness of experience, one's feeling of being alive and possibility and everything expands massively because of this recaptured lost energy. It happens after a while, I think. It doesn't happen right away necessarily. I like that you said, right, immediately it doesn't feel like anything special. It's just really normal. It's just really ordinary. I like that you said that. But once it's continuous over time, things develop. Parts of the self are found, and depths are found, and spaciousness and all that stuff. So just wanted to make the point about the recapturing of all that lost energy that does nothing whatsoever except make one suffer when one is identified with what one is not, which is what the mind is constantly feeding us, what one is not. It's our dream life, what it's feeding us. So that's all I want to say.
Well, thank you so much for muddying things up. Ian, what do you think? Tell us what you think.
I think you're a mighty trickster. I
What?
think you're a 3-year trickster. You've been tricking me for 3 years. There's nothing going on at all. All bullshit. It's not a little bit bullshit. It's all bullshit. It can't be a little bit bullshit, because then it's a little bit bullshit. But if it's all bullshit, maybe it's all true. And that's the major trick that you play on me every day. At the end of your sessions, I say to myself, maybe it's just true what he says. Oh, shit. Now I've got real troubles. And then I think about it for a couple of days, and you come back on Zoom and you do it again. So you're a massive trickster. We talk about tricksters in Zen masters all the time, and you're it. You're an incredible trickster. You're such a good trickster that I don't know I'm being tricked.
I'm interested in knowing, in the mind-bending experience you've been through, was there from that anything learned about who or what you are?
Really? Not really. No. Something's happening. I don't know what it is. In the hospital, I had psychedelics on the roof all the time. But I'm used to psychedelics, so that wasn't such a big thing. I had patterns and distortions and lovely things. Then as soon as I got home and I slept at home, what was the first one? The first one was, I'm losing it already. But they were just really big things about America. And, you're the major influence in my life, I guess, and you just happen to be American. The really weird shit that America's going through. They're trying to be this model of humility and democracy, but it's gone. It's really, really gone. It's fucked a year ago at least, and we keep saying these things. And the one that was on was a great big one of those great big Las Vegas conventions where they're showing what they're going to feed us for next year. All these manufactured foods, and they're just disgusting food. And America's gone so far in commercializing their food systems, they've forgotten what food is. And now here's me just watching all this, and oh no, they've got to be. Oh, they wouldn't do that. Oh yes, they would. Oh my God, worse. Oh no. And what is this? Different one this morning? Completely different one. But it was all about America and what's happening with America, because America is still seen as the center of the earth, and so you end up back in America even if you don't want to be back in America. Yeah, it's quite amazing. It wasn't like LSD or anything like that, but it was it's very strong. And I'm expecting that if I go to sleep after this, I'll have some more. So, because there's something in the process. I don't know what it is. I have no idea, but it's important.
What process?
Well, that's it. I don't know. That's what I said at the start. It is just a massive trickster. I'm fooling myself that there's a process. I have to go through something to get somewhere. And it's complete bullshit. So that's what's been happening. I haven't slept much because there's been a lot of pain from falling out of the ladder. So
From what?
Falling out of the ladder. I think I fell much harder than I thought I did. I've got very strong belly pain. I think I basically wrapped myself over the ladder on the way down, and that's where
What was how far up were you on the ladder?
I don't know. I must have been close to the top, but none of us saw it. Cassie didn't see it. Neil didn't see it. I didn't see it. You know, and the first thing I knew was I was in hospital. I didn't know anything else, so it's pretty big, you know. And I was obviously damaged because I couldn't move properly. Yeah.
He's had so the bleed was in his cerebellum, which
it's a feeling centre.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was very disconnected with my feelings. You know. Could have been a moment for a big breakthrough, but now I had some work to do just because of you, Ed. It's your fault. Oh, God. Things you put yourself through is incredible. Yeah.
Vasilina, do you think I'm imposing a new world of madness on you?
No.
Okay.
You're lucky. You're very enlightened.
Is that what Ian said?
Well, you're lucky.
Yeah,
You're very enlightened.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, too.
What's that?
That he's very lucky.
Yeah.
What?
No, then I said, is that what Ian told you? And then I said, yeah, you are imposing a madness.
Oh, God.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I don't know what you were talking about.
Good, you've escaped my teachings.
Maybe I just mimic you, say what you say, and yeah.
And how's that working for you?
Good.
It's good. Who are you talking to? That you can get away with it.
I don't know, with my parents.
But you don't talk to your parents about what you're learning in satsang.
No. I have to hide it, sort of.
Yeah. We all do.
Yeah.
Be interested to know how many people hide it from their parents.
Or anybody. Hide it from anybody else.
Yeah.
Hide the understanding that you're trying to get here from everybody else because you know they don't think that way.
Yeah. Seriously.
You're moving in a world of fantasy for them, and they would just look at you with a blank face, just sort of shake their heads like that and go away.
In the hospital, it was so funny being with all the they just, it's like, they're not there. They're just somewhere.
Yeah.
They have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. Because they're thinking about what's going on.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. You've got it there. It's amazing. I'm a speech therapist. And I'm a something else. And I'm here to look at your diet. I'm another speech therapist. And how are you talking? And how are you pressing your fingers together? Can you press your fingers together like that? Yes, I can press them. What does that mean? I don't know, but it's really good. Joke. And there must have been, some days there was 6 or 8 of them gathered around me, poking me and make me touch my nose and touch my ears, and, and all of them thought they knew what they were saying. The whole lot of them, all they had this little skill that they sat and trained for at least 2 years, Now I really know what I'm doing now. I'm going to get him to poke his finger in his ear. God, it was so weird.
You wonder what world are they operating from?
Sorry?
You wonder what world they're operating from.
Oh, I thought the guys that take the carts from one place to another were pretty with it. They were good. And they knew what they were doing. You know, they just had to take the carts from one place to another. And they were really nice. They'd take you down big, long corridors, and they'd turn a corner and go down and beat another big, long corridor. And that seemed to be important. In another big, long corridor. And then you put you in a big room that was going, vroom, 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 vroom. I thought that was really nice. Yeah, they didn't seem to want anything out of the system. All the others were you know, you got their study books out and they're writing notes. But the guys that just took other guys around, they were cool. They didn't want anything. It was funny. Yeah,
What have you to say, Chris? Being a former physicist and one dwelling in his mind for the longest period of time.
First of
What's
all,
it like escaping from it?
oh, well, first of all, I just want to say I like Ian's funky hair. It's really wicked. I wish my hair was a little longer. I could style it like that. My mind is so you said so much of what I just kept thinking, yeah, about my mind. And sometimes when I do get freer of the constant barrage of shoulds and what ifs, because my mind is constantly talking. It's constantly telling me.
Yes, it is.
Like I said, should and what if are the main things. And the should, I've been looking at the should. It's like somewhere in my mind, there's this authority figure that says I'm doing it wrong, and I should be doing something else. I should be doing it differently, and it'll be better if I do it differently, or if I figure out what to do, everything, everything will be great. I'll have this great life because I figured out, I solved for X. And I realized that part of that shitting of my mind was exactly what I was doing as a physicist. Trying to figure out X in the universe by understanding more and more math, more and more physics. I kept thinking it. Just get deeper, just get more understanding, and
Yes.
I'll know what to do. I'll know the universe. And I'll be comfortable. I'll be happy. I'll have an understanding, and everything will be great because I'll know. But it was I never did know. It was always this because I was going the wrong way. I feel now that I look at it with you and meditating, I see that it was my mind's fears, my mind's looking for stability, and that was just kept building and building and building. But it was never satisfied, and it could never give me the things it was promising. And when I come here and I relax, and relax is so important to me. And when I say relax, it's my body, my tensions, and most of all, when you talked about closing your eyes and going down, well, for me, it's more like when I close my eyes and relax, I go out. And I feel the spaciousness in which my body exists and my mind exists. And it's not my body in the spaciousness. I can feel my senses, my fingers, my toes, my butt, my stomach. I can feel things, but there's no body. It's just It's just a sensory experience of things in the spaciousness. and my mind is in there too. And in general, it's black, or I see it because I have the red, the eyelids, the blood in the eyelid kind of thing. But I can put my attention, I can just wander around this open spaciousness and feel my fingers, feel my butt, but the mind is right always there. Like if I turn to it, it's like a blazing sun of annoying, like, hey, look at me, what about? But the rest of the space is very pleasant and calm. Yeah, and it's real to me. It seems more about exploring the other things in the space and turning as much as I can my awareness away from the screaming baby in the corner. But it's hard for me to do that because
well, you know what that points out to you? You realize you're separate from the mind, and what you are has nothing to do with the mind. The mind is a function that happens along with you that has dominated your life for years, where you've taken that representational reality and made it the primary reality, and they've ignored the primary reality, which is being nothing, just observing, watching, feeling. You get out of the world of the mind. The world of the mind doesn't exist. It's just like a universal mind that we participate in when we know all the rules and all the things to be said, etc., in a rote sort of way. Because when you don't have a mind anymore, you feel lost. You feel lost. And you're in a new world that is so strange from one point of view. There's no knowledge there anymore. There's no knowing. And you see knowing as the trap. Knowing is the trap that makes you on this endless wheel of doing and not doing, and praying and not praying, and judging and not judging. And you've escaped from it. But the what you've escaped to seems, in a sense, so ordinary. There's nothing special there. It's just what is. And what is isn't that special. Except that you're out of your mind, and that's freedom. You're out of your mind. Yes. Question.
So, can you comment on using this and living in a world where we have to go to work, one would have to go to work, study, do mental activities, and communicate on a very mental, cognitive level, and finances, all that stuff that one might have to do in life?
What about it? What is the question?
How does one become mindless and work in a level of very active mind activities?
I don't think I quite understand what you're asking. How do you live in the world when you have no mind?
Yes, but live in a world where you actually have to interact in a world where you have a lot of strong cognitive mental activities to do.
Well, when you're at work, you do what the work is, but when you come home, you leave that all behind. And it's the same thing with this. When you're forced to respond to questions and do things in the world that involve tasks and so forth, you just do them. And you maybe have all that mental stuff accessible to you, but you only need it to do very little things. And you learn to function without the mind so much and let it just do its own thing. It's hard to say. I know what you mean, but it's hard for me to address the question. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. when you're in mindlessness, be mindless. And I think the good thing to learn is that the mindless world is the more fundamental world. It's the state of being a baby or pre-baby state. And the world that you've learned is the adult state, which is filled with concepts and rules and regulations and laws and punishment and reward and all that kind of stuff. But to get away from all of that and just be in nothingness, not wanting or understanding or caring about anything, it's freedom.
There was a thing that happened at the hospital, Ed, which I talked about last time I was here, and I thought about some more. Two young doctors, both in their 20s, you know the sort, they're very brave, they're wearing tight shirts, the usual thing, and they're having a discussion in front of me. And I was trying to get them to say I could go home now, but they weren't interested in that. So they were having a discussion. Did you hear a murmur, one said? Well, I think I did, I'm not sure. I'll have another listen. So he has another listen. He says, yeah, I think I heard a murmur. And for God's sake, it's my heart. You know, and he's telling that he's a murmur. Oh, well, let's send him down for 3 PCIs and what's the other one?
MRIs and CT scans.
Yeah, you're not supposed to have too many of those. So they're sending me down for MRIs and CTs every time they had a chance at another theory. So it seemed to me that all they were doing was keeping their theory going and keeping a hot prospect, you know, a hot customer. And it's very strange because I didn't feel anything wrong with my chest until after they did that. Well, my chest was fine, but after they did it, my chest was hurting like hell. So very weird, very weird. And when Chris mentioned that he was thinking all the time and trying to get it right, that reminded me of that and gave me a little bit of an idea of what was really happening. They simply weren't finished. He wasn't finished. So he was doing it, and those two doctors were doing it, and they'll do it until they don't do it. They'll do it until one day they come in and they'll say, we're not going to do anything to this guy, and let him go home. Because that's what they're learning. And it was pretty profound, actually, now it comes back to me.
They don't know shit, except the shit that they do know.
Oh, look, they've had years of training, but, you know, what does that mean? That they'll choose to maybe have a it's like they're so scared to have a murmur in my heart, they have to follow every possibility that there may be a murmur in the heart, even if perhaps I didn't hear it.
They wanted the result. They wanted they wanted to be able to give you a
yeah.
And that was really perplexing because they couldn't find they couldn't work out what was wrong.
No.
They just couldn't, and that was really perplexing for them, and they didn't like it one little bit.
No, that's right. Very strange, very strange. The whole, I mean, I really think the physician is a high path, and you get guys who stay in their path their whole life. Other ones are absolutely incredible, and they've you know opened up and said, I'm going to do this, and it's been a lifetime pattern, just like we're talking about here. But I have great respect for a physician that's used his one-time life opportunity to do what he thinks he has to do. It's incredible. And when you read physician stories, you know, you realise what they've been through. I mean, what's the one that went to Congo? Einstein? One that lived in the Congo for years.
Livingston?
Not Einstein, no.
No, who is it?
Schweitzer. Albert Schweitzer.
Albert Schweitzer. You just have to read a little bit of his stuff and understand he was an incredibly deep individual. And he wasn't there just for medicine, even though he was doing medicine as service. His life was happening right there. Incredible people. So when I hear people rubbish doctors, I go, well, you put yourself in this place and see if you stand up the way they stand up. You know, because they won't necessarily do it. Many of them will just make a lot of money, buy a yacht and sink it. You know? Okay, I've talked enough, I think.
I love you all. If you can walk away from everything you've learned here today, which isn't much. Enjoy yourself in mindlessness. Just be nothing. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. No more talents to learn. No more things to do. No more things to take care of. Just take care of your animals and your relatives, the people that are close to you. And narrow your world down to something you can handle. Not the bigger world where there's no solution to anything. Your world, though, is just becoming dumber and dumber and happier in that dumbness. That's what it feels like. You're losing the human world. You're walking away from the human world into what you really are in emptiness and nothingness. And it's really hard to describe that to people and say, this is a viable path for you to take, to do nothing. And what does it get you? Well, it doesn't get you an Academy Award or any kind of Tonys. You just feel good. You feel freedom. You feel freedom all the time. Anyway, I love you all so much. You're my family to me. And I communicate with you the things that only we can talk about. The rest of the world wouldn't understand. Take care. See you maybe Wednesday. Bye-bye.